Hello, I'm Jacqueline Coe, Superintendent of Schools in SAU 24. Over the last 5 or 6 weeks, the SAU 24 Continuous Learning Task Force members have been researching and problem solving around the best way to open school. We are working diligently to come up with a framework for addressing the variety of situations that we may find ourselves in. Our plans are being made with the necessary precautions to support the safety and health of all of our students and staff. We are sharing our progress so far today in an effort to get your input and insights before we move into the next phase of our planning. There will be survey links attached to this message that you can use to share your feedback. Our framework for returning to school is informed by guidelines set by the local, state, federal, government, and public health officials. We understand that we will need to be flexible to respond to what has been an ever-changing situation. The general recommendations that we received from the New Hampshire Department of Education last week confirmed that we are addressing at the local level the right areas. We anticipate getting even more specific guidelines from the state in the very near future, and we will use that information to guide our next step. Please recognize that this framework is intended to guide our decision-making throughout the whole year as circumstances evolve. The task force is looking at the return on a spectrum with fully remote on one end and no restrictions on the other. We're reflecting on our experiences with remote learning from the spring and conducting analysis of the community surveys that went out in April and again in June, so that we can better meet the needs of students if we need to go remote again. Some key takeaways from the latest survey in June are consistency, clear expectations, and structure are really important. More engagement, interaction, communication, and support need to be built into remote learning if it does continue. Social emotional learning needs to be a high priority. We need to increase our emphasis on addressing the specific needs of students who are identified and or receiving tiered services. In looking at the surveys, about a quarter of our parents felt strongly that remote learning should just be discontinued. And about 11% of our parents who answered the survey had health and safety concerns that were significant enough that they were considering not sending their children. Many parents had concerns about the impact of distancing and PPE guidelines and were worried about the impact of remote learning on their own employment. Those insights will inform our planning for the possibility if we need to go remote in 2020, 2021. And we're also identifying lessons that we can learn from the whole experience to integrate into our way of doing business when we return to normal, and we will return to normal. Lastly, we've spent the majority of our time developing options for a return to school with significant restrictions. Given the most current news about the virus, this is the scenario that we anticipate for the fall. We're developing variations on 2 different options that will allow us to follow the guidelines set forth by New Hampshire Health and Human Services and bring as many students back to the school for the most amount of time possible. The first one, selective return, prioritizes younger students in returning to the physical classroom and has older students engaged in a blended approach that includes both remote and face-to-face instruction. The second option, alternating schedule, has all our students alternating time in the building, either by day or by week. You can learn more about these options by visiting our website, and again, there's a link to that in this message. As we get more information and feedback, we expect that a solution that's going to meet the needs of SAU 24 will evolve. Recently, the New Hampshire chapter of the American Academy of Pediatricians issued a statement stressing that it is a priority to get students back to school for their overall development. Additionally, the statement suggested that a blanket requirement of 6 feet of distancing and universal face masks for students may not be necessary, as adults have been the primary source of household infection. This may give us some guideline, some flexibility in our planning. There is higher risk, however, with our older students and with adults. Ultimately, we are not able to eliminate risks, but we are seeking to mitigate them. There are unique challenges inherent in any of the situations that we're going to find ourselves in. Transportation is going to be an issue. We also recognize that many of our students and adults have specific needs because of underlying conditions and family situations. By some counts, nearly 1/5 of our staff may fall into that situation, that category. There are assumptions that we can move forward with no matter what the circumstances are. Parents are probably going to be asked to screen their children before getting on school buses or dropping them off at school. Large gatherings, assemblies, and field trips are probably not going to be possible. We feel like we need to have an increased focus on social emotional learning to help mitigate the challenges we're all grappling with during these uncertain times. We're going to focus in on essential competencies at each grade level to make sure that we're building a foundation for the next level of learning that each student needs. Transportation is going to be a difficult puzzle to figure out. We are seeking out additional guidance on how we can transport safely. And depending on that guidance, we may reach out to parents to encourage them to transport their students to school. Overall, I think the culture needs to shift to ensure that people stay home when they have symptoms. This will necessitate a plan for us to deal with staff absences. And in all likelihood, we will need an option that is a fully remote option for some students. We are engaged in this planning using the best information that we have at this moment. As we continue through the summer to finalize plans for the beginning of school, we really do need your input. Our goal is to have an initial plan in place by early August so that the buildings can then adapt the plan for their unique needs. And we are committed to creating a plan that serves the needs of all students. And we understand that it is going to be an ongoing process of refinement and change throughout the year as we get feedback and as the situation evolves. So please take a few moments to share your feedback, to look at the website, and thank you for partnering with us during these tough times.